today. We have so many skilled people, so many experts. It's just an honor to be able to present. I have a series of slides to present, and then we'll follow it up with a demonstration, a mock contest, evaluators, and a judging panel to really give the balance of the training for what we're trying to do. What is evaluation? Evaluation is an amazing skill to have, and it's one of the unique skills of Toastmasters. Today, our focus is looking at the fundamentals of evaluation and a few of the superlatives of evaluation. There's a cardinal rule that I have always followed. I'm sure you have too. If you know what it is, you'll see it in just a minute. And there's some never do's. The never do's are equally important. Finally, we'll get into the evaluation contest and talk a little bit about how that will work. Let me get the technology working here. You now see the focus slide. Gail, is that the focus slide now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Now let's talk about what's the importance of evaluations. Approximately 100 years ago, Toastmasters International was formed. And Ralph Smedley, the originator of Toastmasters, is quoted as saying, "We have to perfect constructive criticism." You're never going to be a good speaker or a good leader unless you are validly accepting constructive criticism. But then the question comes in, what is constructive? What is criticism? How do I do it in a way that does not influence or affect adversely my subject? I'm looking for different ways to do that. Constructive criticism. When I'm talking about Toastmasters constructive criticism, evaluation, there are a number of attributes. Think about how you would describe the way we do it and see if some of these words come to mind. Do you have any of these words in mind when you look at lighthearted or supportive, encouraging? These are the kinds of attributes that we use in our evaluations. The whole idea is to be supportive, to be positive, to be flexible, as some people have said, and this is important. What is evaluation? Evaluation is basically information. It's an information flow. I am listening to you give a speech, and I'm going to provide you some information about that speech. How did it come to me? How did I perceive you? And what would you feel is important to know about your evaluation? So information to support, help, and encourage. We most frequently use what's called an Oreo or sandwich technique as 3 parts. The first part of the 3 is to acknowledge and highlight some of the things you really liked. I'm coming right off the back of a speech and I'm very excited, and I want to highlight some of the strong points, some of the things that really spoke to me, that touched me. And as I do that, it becomes very motivational. It becomes empathetic. It becomes a skillful way to build confidence in the speaker. That's what the first part is all about. Second part is the opportunities. When I heard you and saw you and felt your experience, I saw a few opportunities that you might like to consider as ways to grow. There's ways to improve, ways to grow. And in fact, whenever we give a speech, there's always feedback. We are interested in how we're perceived. We're interested in how we are heard. And that feedback is very important to our growth. And finally, the third part is the motivation. After it's all said and done, I want to leave it on a positive note. I want to be motivated. I want the speaker to be known to be supportive. And those are the 3 areas that I emphasize in this style of evaluation. If you look deeper, there's literally dozens of ways to do evaluations. This is the model that we use most frequently in Toastmasters, but there's also show and tell. There's also a style of interruptions where I actually stop the speaker in real time to give feedback. There's different styles that we would use. For the contest, it will most likely yield to this style of an evaluation. And there's two main things that we focus on when we're doing evaluations. We look at speech delivery and we look at speech content. Delivery and content, those two make the whole picture. What is it about delivery? It's everything about delivery. It's the stage presence, it's the physical, it's the voice, it's the inflections, it's the volume, and the pauses. Everything about delivery that's important to know. What is it about the content? The content of the message. Was the speech organized well? Did it flow? Did it capture me and draw me in? Were the segues clean and smooth as I went from one topic to the next? What about the content of the message? Was my message received? The purpose of the speech, was it accurate? Was it understood? Those are the types of things we look at in evaluation, delivery and content. Clear and concise. It's important to be specific, be clear and concise. For that purpose, we normally use 2 to 3 minutes. That's how we conduct the contest. 2 to 3 minutes with a grace period of 30 seconds. But what's it all about? It's all about listening. If I'm an evaluator, the most important first step is for me to be a good listener. I must have proactive listening. What is proactive listening? Do you have any idea what proactive listening is? What is it for you? You're ready to hear a speech? How do you proactively listen? Let's talk about some listening ideas. First of all, minimize the time on the obvious. The obvious thing these days is eyes in the camera. How many times have I heard, you need to keep your eyes in the camera? I feel like you're talking to me. When you're looking at the screen, I don't feel like you're talking to me. This is probably the most frequent evaluation remark I've heard in recent meetings. More importantly, when I'm listening, I want to focus on the significant features. What are really the impactful features about the delivery? What are the really important aspects of the message and the content of the message? Those are the things that I really want to emphasize when I'm evaluating. How do I prepare? Can you prepare for a spontaneous speech on something that hasn't happened yet? Yes, absolutely. Here's how you do it. Keep a journal. Repeat after me. Keep a journal. That's right. I noticed that some of you were more emphatic about that than others. But when I keep a journal, here's what I do. Every time I hear an evaluation of a speech, I think about it and say, I can use that. That applies to me. Hadn't thought about it that way. That's an important note. And I began making entries into my journal. And I do it on the next speech and the next meeting. I do the next speech and the next. Pretty soon I have a journal of expertise about evaluations. I have a checklist of evaluations. I know about the prospects that I can choose from, and I am really set and ready to listen proactively because I know what I'm looking for. Some of the examples of listening ideas are shown in the lower bullets. Your message, your purpose, your confidence. What is the stance and the props? What about diction and volume and variety of the speech? How about the opening of the speech and the closing of the speech? Was the speaker nervous? Was the breathing unnormal or unnatural? Something about listening proactively that really is helpful. This is an example that is used as one technique. Proactive listening, there's any number of ways to keep your notes. I like this one as a simple technique. It's called SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. As I am listening to the speaker, I am proactively listening for things in these categories. For example, this speaker may give me this type of information when I'm listening. What are the strengths I noticed that speaker portrayed and exhibited? It had a real connection with the audience. I really liked the way the audience paid attention and listened to that speaker. It was a strong opening, an excellent way to begin. had the attention of everyone from the get-go. Then there were a few weaknesses I noticed. There were very little vocal variety. It was very monotonic. And when the speech was concluding, it just stopped. There was no closing. Those are weaknesses. And what about opportunities for improvement? Were there things that I saw that could be opportunities for improvement? Obviously, the eye contact, the old reliable. Hand gestures, were they in sync with the message? Or were the gestures just all over the place? The message of the gesture must support the point you're making. Otherwise, no need for the gesture. These are examples of opportunities. But what about threats? There are real distinct threats to a speech. One of them is unrehearsed props. How many times have we seen someone begin to use a prop only to realize it wasn't rehearsed properly with the camera, and the prop was fumbled or stumbled, or perhaps it was a prop that was used, but when I used it, it wasn't even in view. I had to rehearse to know that if I'm going to use this prop, it better be in the view. Presenting a prop when it's not in view doesn't help. That's a threat. So rehearse props. And what about timing? The other threat is there's too much information. Particularly analytical people, that style, like to have lots of data. We like to give examples and show data, and sometimes there's just too much. That would be an example of a threat. Now that I've composed my notes, I have some good notes that I can use in my 5 minutes to put together a good speech. Now I go into speech composition. How do I bias my evaluation? One thing that's very important is the skill set of the speaker. If you're working with novice speakers, the primary things that we work on are focusing on what they're doing well. It's like the icebreaker speech. I notice in the icebreaker, you have a natural strength. Your voice quality is beautiful. You can elaborate on that. And with a little Toastmaster training, you'll be a fantastic speaker from the stage. I'm here to boost the confidence of a novice speaker. That's the overall underlying mission of an evaluation. What about those experienced speakers? These are the people that are really skillful, like many in this audience. They have given literally hundreds of speeches and they do well with it. Many are professional speakers. How do I evaluate somebody and they just gave a perfect speech? I don't know what to say. I don't know how to evaluate it. This is one of the things we'll explore in the judging panel. But some things to think about for experienced speakers are shown here. How was the stage presence? Was the staging consistent with the speech? What about preparation? Was the rehearsal and the crafting of the speech appropriate, such that it rallied off beautifully? Was the professionalism of the speech in place? Another thing professional speakers look for is the flow or the segues from topic to topic. These are all things that we get into in detail in pathways 3, 4, and 5. And these are things that we would aim to evaluate. So if you're looking at an evaluating experienced speaker, watch carefully for those kinds of things. You'll notice when you're tuned into those, you'll see some examples that you can use. Key number 1 then is to establish self-esteem. If I help establish self-esteem of the speaker, it's going to automatically lead to a better speaker and give growth to that speaker. I always want to emphasize self-esteem of the speaker. I'm giving my personal assessments. What I'm giving is authentic, it's realistic, and it's honest. I'm diplomatically giving it because as a Toastmaster, I know to build confidence and not tear someone down, there's a technique that I want to use, and that's what we work on. I'm creating a climate to motivate the speaker. I want to make it a safe place. It's a laboratory. It's a place where we experiment. We make mistakes. We do it on purpose. That's how we grow. I want to always provide positive direction to that speaker. That's key number 1. Build self-esteem. Key number 2 is I want everyone who hears this evaluation to benefit from it. That means the speaker, first of all, has to have good training and coaching and evaluation that they can use. Say more about how they can use that in a minute. I also am training and coaching the audience. Each of the audience is keeping their own journal. When they hear something they can use, they're making a note, or they're taking a screenshot, or they're making an application to memory. That's the important part. I want value to the audience. What about judges? Judges are going to be giving quantitative scores in different categories. So if I'm in a contest, I will pay attention to provide value in each of those 4 categories, which we will elaborate in a moment. And finally, what about the evaluator's benefit? It's important to me as an evaluator to be able to organize my thoughts, to be empathetic with my speaker, to compose a message that is on point, helpful, specific, and uplifting. That's what it's all about for me as an evaluator. So I grow each and every time I do an evaluation. What about key number 3? Key number 3, this is a speech. The evaluation is a speech. What's a speech? It has an introduction, starts you out. It has a body of the speech where the main message is explored and elaborated. And it has a closing or a conclusion, which may be a call to action. The real speech evaluation has an intro, a body, and a close. It must be authentic and entertaining. And if I'm being honest with the speaker, I'm going to be authentic. That's the only way I can give a true evaluation. I don't want to gaslight them. I don't want to whitewash them. I don't want to ignore issues that should be addressed. And I'm going to present opportunities for improvement. It's a speech, so let's make it humorous. Let's have some fun with it. Vocal variety is important. I want to be entertaining so that the audience, the judges, the speaker all get it. If I can tell a story with that evaluation speech, they'll remember it more. And finally, the summary. After I've done that, quick wrap up at the end. Your strengths were these. I said 2 suggestions to improve. They're 1 and 2. You're doing a great job. Let's look forward to that next speech. It's going to be fabulous. I'll note your improvements the next time you're up. Personalizing the language is also important. Since it is a personal evaluation from me to you, I should use I language. I felt what you said. This is how you reached me. This is how you touched my heart. This is how you affected my thinking. I saw how you moved around on the stage. I saw the gesture you used. I heard the vocal variety. I heard the emphasis. I heard the range, the dynamic range of your volume. You were very soft at times. You were very loud at times. I perceived your speech in that fashion. The mantra that evaluators could use is what I saw, what I heard, and what I felt. This is the most popular evaluation form that's used. If you would like other forms, go on Google and ask for a Toastmaster evaluation form. You will see over 100 different styles. Many of them circle around those 3 areas. And a basic important point is evaluate the speech, not the person. And it's not this speech in a series of speeches, unless you're in a club and you're working on that. But the presentation, particularly for the contest, this is a one-time event. It's once now. I'm evaluating this speech, this day, this time. It's about what you did in this performance. It's not about the person, it's about the speech. I found also in composing the speech, it's good to deal in 3s. Rules of 3 work very well in a lot of areas. Also, the second point is logos, pathos, and ethos. What is that? Logos is the logic. Was there logic in the speech? Did the points logically fit together? Was your point number 1, number 2, number 3 flowing with a logical segue and sequence? What about the pathos, the enthusiasm, the sensitivity, the passion, the feelings? Did I feel anything when you spoke to me? Or did I just observe it? No, the pathos had to be there. I had to get something from you. And ethics. Ethos is ethics and authenticity, authority. With what credentials did you present this? Do you qualify? Are you qualified to present? Deals in 3s. We may want to talk about the organization and the speech crafting. the opportunities and how that could be viewed, and some general comments. I may want to take the threes of, let me talk about preparation. I want to talk about your rehearsals, about your speechcraft, your organizing. Explain that. Explain the evaluation of that. Next, the presentation, the stage presence, the volume, and finally, the wrap up and call to action. Those would be good threes to think about. If you'll notice, skilled evaluators frequently have some kind of a threesome, and they may nickname it. They may call it pop. They may call it shoe. They may call it act. I've seen all of those and more. So be creative, come up with threes that work for you. And those are the things you're looking for in the evaluation. There's also some no-no-nos. The no-no-no that is the most irritating is the retelling of the speech. How often do you hear a 5-minute speech and a 3-minute retelling of the same speech? I liked it when you told the story of how you went down to the beach and then you went to swimming and the water was cold, and they go on and on. This does not provide good evaluation feedback. The proper way to do that would be in your speech, when you talked about the beach, I noticed this is what I felt. I felt the coldness of the water. I felt the wind blowing through my hair. I felt the excitement of the crowd. That's how you retell the speech. You evaluate a key point of the speech. Second, do not embarrass or judge that speaker. Our goal is to build confidence, to build self-esteem, to build growth. And by embarrassing a person or judging him, saying, you should have done this, a good speaker would have said that. Those kinds of things are not helpful. Instead, use something that would be nurturing, that comes from you, that says, I noticed, I felt, take it from there. Another thing that people sometimes do is launch into their own story. I remember when you were at the beach, it reminded me of the time I went down to the Port Aransas and we went surfing, and let me tell you about these big fish we saw and how. No, that's not where we're headed with evaluation. It's not about the evaluator, it's about the speaker. It's about the speech that was given, to be precise. Don't go into your own story. If you need to include yourself, do it very gently, quickly, and use it as a bridge to explain your evaluation. Another thing that's very important, do not start your evaluation with apologizing. I apologize that I'm not very good. I apologize that I didn't listen very carefully. I apologize that, no, this is not where we go. I'm sharing what I heard, felt, and saw. So as long as I'm authentic, truthful, and honest, I'm showing up as a person who can look back at the speaker and share authentically. So no need to apologize, no need to whitewash, simply saying, oh, you were so good, I just couldn't find anything. Remember that list from your journal of the things to look for in a skilled speaker. That is the whitewash. That's the whitewash remedy. You're prepared ahead of time knowing what to look for. Cardinal rule, there's my cardinal. If nothing else in an evaluation, there should be motivation that they want to come and give their next speech. They felt so good about the support, the encouragement, the empathy, the enlightenment, the self-esteem, everything that you were using to build them. I really want to come and give that next speech because I'm going to incorporate those suggestions you gave me. I'm going to do it better next time. Motivate them to want to give that next speech, to be excited. I can't wait to give that next speech because now I know some new skills. I'll be able to do an even better job. That's the cardinal rule of evaluating. What about the contest? We do it once a year. It's done at the club, area, division, and district level. It stops at district. It's as high as you could go. And we have a scoring criteria, which we'll be getting into. 40% analytical, 30% recommendations, 15% technique, and 15% summation. What does that mean? The scoring criteria is very clearly provided on a score sheet ballot. You won't be able to read it, but it looks like this. There's a matrix, there's a column for each speaker that's competing, and there's a row for each quality that will be judging, and there's a criteria on how well they did. Points are given as an evaluator or judge begins to rank the competition. The featured test speaker talks for 5 to 7 minutes. Then the contestants lead the room. They have 5 minutes to take notes. Then they were brought in by the sergeant at arms one by one. Contestants don't hear the prior evaluation, so there's no bias. Each one is refreshing as a new evaluation. And it'll be interesting to note, the more evaluators, the more opinions you're going to hear. The more things there will be an agreement, and the more things will be unique. And there'll be some disagreements. That's what it's like to have a real audience. Speech is 2 to 3 minutes with a grace period of 30 seconds on either side. And the judges then cast their vote through this ballot. On the right side, you'll see there's judging criteria. Since you can't read it, I've summarized the key words, and we'll go through this in more detail. This is hard to read too. Analytical quality is about the effectiveness of the speech. What were the strengths and what were the weaknesses? What was clear in the speech? What was logical in the speech? What were some specific things that I would analyze that gives you feedback? That's 40%. 30% is recommendations. Recommendations are what's important for the speaker to know to improve, and what specifically can be given. Needs to be practical, helpful, and positive. Most importantly, it should be enabling. It should be a recommendation that enables an improvement. Finally, technique is 15%. What was the manner and the style that was presented? Was it sensitive to the feelings and diplomatic in the way it was presented? Was it inspirational and encouraging? Did you uplift the speaker? That's the technique. And finally, summation. How do you wrap this all up? I've got conclusions. In conclusion, I told you these 2 things that were the strongest part of your speech, and I gave you these 2 observations to improve upon. So I encourage you, and I'm excited to hear your next speech. That's how it goes. What about winner's tips? To win a contest, you have to add value for the speaker, the audience, and the judges. If you don't add value in all those categories, you're losing points. The next bullet is address all score categories. There's 4 categories. Each one, you want to maximize the points in each category. Finally, that's the analytical side of it. But what about the pathos? Did you give an excellent speech? The evaluation speech is a speech. Was it authentic? Was it creative? Was it entertaining? Did that evaluation speech have an impact? That's speech you want to give. And you want to have fun. Let's have fun. Whatever you can do to enjoy yourself and have everyone enjoy it, that's a good evaluation speech. Those are winner's tips. There's certain challenges to overcome. Don't go over your allotted time. That's how I lost a district contest. You can't have weak recommendations. If you've done your homework with your journal, you will have strong recommendations that are specific and to the point. If you forget to do the summary, I got squeezed for time at a division contest one year and forgot the summary, and Katie Porter knocked 15 points off my score that quick. She says, "You just went from first to last, Chief." So thanks, Katie. I'll see you later. And there's distractions. What about distractions? If you are distracted by noise in the room, if it's in person, there's an audience distraction, perhaps even a time clock. Any distractions that affect you, those can challenge. There's lots of resources. I've only hit some highlights. Go to Toastmasters.org, go to Google and YouTube and talk to your colleagues. That is it. And now on to the contest. Back to you, Toastmaster Yale.
Please tell us which club or clubs you are a member of in Toastmasters.
I belong to TGIF Toastmasters Club and World Travelers Club. And I was searching which district World Travelers Club is. I'm not sure, I'm afraid. It's in Singapore.
Okay, great. So I'm curious, how did you become a member of the TGIF club in the United States?
Yes. I'm working mother, having 4 kids. And at first, I searched for Japanese club and also a club doing over Zoom, because I cannot have time to attend club meeting face to face after work. And there were one club that I attended, but it was from 11 o'clock at night. And my kids wants me to sleep with them. So it was a little bit difficult for me to attend, a club during, later at nighttime. So I searched for another club. And by that time it was, COVID. During COVID, many clubs were turning into Zoom meeting, hybrid meetings. And I found one club. It was Orient Express Club. It was in California too. And it was early in the morning, only 1 hour, twice a month, I think. And it fit my time schedule. So I joined their club. But after 2 years, the club was disbanded because there were only few people. And then Tam and Nico invited me to another club and introduced me this TGIF, Toastmasters Club, and they welcomed me. So I'm now TGIF member.
That's wonderful.
Thank you very much.
I have no doubt that they are pleased to have you as a member of their club. What motivated you in the beginning to become a Toastmaster?
Yes. As a mother of 4 children, I had in my mind that I missed my career step up in my, in my 30s, because I was fully occupied with raising kids. And I was definitely losing my confidence in public speaking and leadership skills, or career skills in general. And I wanted to gain confidence. And also, I wanted to brush up my English skills as well, because I was losing that skill as well. So this Toastmaster was, was good for me in both ways, building my confidence skills and also my English skills. That was my motivation.
Sounds like good motivation to join Toastmasters to me. I have another question I'm curious about. Now that your daughter has convinced you to have a dog, how do you feel about the dog?
She's very cute. It's my really first time having a dog. So I actually hesitated to hold in my hand at the first place. But now she's very, very cute. She's like my another child. I really like her.
That's wonderful. I never had dogs when I was growing up either, but I have 3 really big dogs right now. So I'm a dog lover and a dog mom. Well, thank you so much for sharing your wonderful speech with us today. It was wonderful to hear your story. And we really appreciate you joining us at such an early hour on a weekend.
It's my honor.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to meet you, Tamami. 5 minutes. Let's give Tamami another round of applause for her participation today. At this time, I would like to welcome back Tan Pham, District 33 Program Quality Director, for a few announcements.
Thank you, Gail. Wow, we had a great opportunity to listen to a spectacular speaker, and we're going to have some more coming up for the evaluators. But from the district, I wanted to share a couple of announcements. As I share my screen, I will also provide this file in the chat later. Our district, we're going to be hosting 3 speech contest categories this spring: the International Speech Contest, Evaluation Speech, and the Spanish Speech Contest. The Spanish speech contest will follow the international speech criteria, which means contestants have to complete the pathways level 1 or 2, or be a distinguished Toastmaster to be a speaker. Again, the pathways they do not have to be in Spanish. You can complete the English versions of the pathways level 1 and level 2, but the criteria is they just have to fit. You have to be completed with the pathways level 1 and 2 to qualify to compete in the Spanish speech contest. Some upcoming dates that our district officer team, which consists of area and division directors, they're going to be communicating with you, and they're doing planning right now. Here are some tentative dates for the areas in A1 through A5, and most of this will take place in the month of February. Division B is still to be determining their contest dates. Division C, the areas C1 through C5, they will host them in February. A couple of them on the 18th, and some of them will be joint contests. The Division D, which consists of division areas D1 through D3, will host them online, and also the in-person location is listed here, Santa Maria Library. Area E1 through E3, they will host their speech contest the first weekend in March. Area F1 through F4, they are hosting it in various weekends, various days in the month of February. And finally, the areas G1 through G4, looks like they are consolidated onto the 18th of February. For the divisions, our speech contests are again still in planning, and most of these will take place in the month of March. The speech contest will be held in the hybrid speech contest format. And here's the dates. Most of them will be in March, and we do have one popping up on the April 1st date. And finally, at the district level, as we mentioned earlier, our 3 speech contests will be the international evaluation and the Spanish speech contest. That'll be in the last weekend of April. April 29th is a Saturday. And previously, we saw many dates with the Spanish speech contests that are to be determined. At the district level, we do plan to organize all the areas in all the division Spanish speech contests, and we'll hold them on a 1 or 2 weekends consolidated. And we're pinpointing to do that the second weekend in March. That's not on here, but we're working on that. We're building our team up for the Spanish speech contest at the area and the division level. That's just a sneak peek of what's coming up this spring. I'd like to return conduct back to our presiding officer and contest chair, Gail.
Thank you, Tan, for sharing those announcements with us and the schedule for the contests within our district. All right. Evaluation contestant number 1, Beth Stuckley. Beth Stuckley.
Thank you, Madam Contest Chair, fellow Toastmasters, and especially Tamani. Thank you for a wonderful, impactful speech. It was very well prepared and delivered, and very moving. Your command of English is excellent. Your facial expressions and gestures were all deliberate and added to the speech. One tiny thing, sometimes your hand gestures just barely came into the frame. That's something to watch on Zoom, but your gestures were very good. Manner was comfortable. I liked that you opened with a question to draw everyone in. The transition from the question to coming of age at 20 was a little bit abrupt. And the meat of your speech was your letter to your daughter. I don't know of any specific occasion in my culture where a parent actually tells a child how appreciated he or she is. And that was absolutely wonderful. And I liked that you pointed out how well your daughter handled the business of getting a dog, convincing you to get a dog. It was you ended the letter with a very strong ending for the letter, but you had a beginning and then the letter, and I sort of felt the ending would have been stronger if you had bookended the letter and had an ending that wasn't just the end of the letter. But the speech overall was very moving and entertaining and wonderful to watch. And I hope I get to hear more of your speeches. Thank you, Tamani. Tamami. I'm sorry about that with your name. Thank you for your speech.
Thank you, Beth. We will now observe 1 minute of silence while the judges cast their ballots. Madam Timer, please indicate when 1 minute has passed.
1 minute.
Thank you, Kathy. Contestant number 2, Liz Brenner, please speak so we can make sure we can hear you.
Hello, Gail.
Hello, Liz. You can see the timer?
Yes.
Perfect. Are you ready?
Yes.
It is now my pleasure to introduce evaluation contestant number 2, Liz Brenner. Liz Brenner.
Fellow Toastmasters, fellow international Toastmasters, and especially to Mommy. Thank you so much for visiting us from Japan to give us this beautiful speech. The first thing that I noticed about you before you even started speaking was your amazing camera presence. Your background is an incredible graphic design. You've got your square black and white windows framed by a black frame, and you're wearing black and white. But to contrast the squares and the black and white, you've got your beautiful face and the curve of your hair to contrast with the squares. This is an amazing graphic design. I don't know if you intended to do that or if it just happened, but we can all learn from your background. It was an amazing presence. So I really liked your stage presence on the camera. Your speech was beautiful and a moving tribute to your child. And I loved the words that you wrote in your letter. The one suggestion I could give you about this letter was the background information on the 20-year-olds, because that wasn't really relevant to the letter. You could have simply said, it's a tradition to celebrate the 10th birthday, and here's the letter I wrote to my child. I felt that the 20th birthday information sort of took us off track a little bit. So that could have been cut out and gone straight to your tribute to your child. The letter that you wrote to your child was beautiful. And in this letter, I felt the love and the pride and the joy that you feel for all of your children, but especially this child celebrating her birthday. You used a really great technique in this letter, which is the rule of three. People listen to things in threes. It just sticks in our brains. And you told us three things about this child. You talked about your difficult pregnancy. You talked about getting a puppy. And you talked about how this child is helping her sister through a difficult time. So you gave us three things to remember about this child. And I think that that really made this letter to your child shine. So to summarize, you had a great graphic design in your camera presence. You could perhaps make your opening a little more concise, but your letter was full of love, joy, and pride, and it utilized the rule of three. And I really enjoyed your letter. I enjoyed meeting you from Japan, and I hope I get to see you again sometime soon. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Liz. We will now observe 1 minute of silence while the judges cast their ballots. Madam Timer, please indicate when 1 minute has passed.
1 minute.
Thank you, Kathy.
Hello, everyone, and good afternoon from Simi Valley.
Thank you, Steve. Can you see the timer?
Yes, I can. Thank you for asking.
All right. Are you ready?
Tamami Nakayama. What a wonderful, wonderful presentation and speech. First of all, I have to congratulate you on your opening. It was fantastic. Why? Because you caught my attention immediately, because you pointed out one important thing that so many of us have forgotten in this technology time: how to communicate by writing a letter. And first of all, that thought enters to everybody's mind because most of us don't write letters anymore. We probably don't even know calligraphy. I've tried it recently, but I cannot do it. But your opening was precious in regards how you talked about the engagement with your your daughter who was ill, and your pregnant soon-to-be daughter coming into this world, and the struggles that you had. So you built several stories there that we could go into the future and visualize what you were talking about in regards to some of the challenges as they got older. I love the prop. The prop was fantastic with the envelope opening and so forth. And with that, I loved your talking about the dog. The dog was quite interesting. What I loved about it was the positioning you did and each role with your daughter and her arguments and her discussions with you on how she can take care of the dog Lala. And that's a fantastic way for the audience to connect to your heart, because everybody, for the most part, loves an animal in some form: cats, dogs. You provided comfort in how you made me comfortable. Everything you said came from your heart, and you supported everything with the relationship to your family and your daughters. You can tell you were very genuine in how you deal with the maturity with your kids and handling them like adults. The prop was excellent, and what I would consider is placing the envelope down. So that was a little bit of a distraction for me. So I kept picking up the envelope and I would look at your envelope. And to be more in other things to work on is probably, you did it a couple times, you paused, but maybe you might add it in a few more pauses in a couple other areas. Your enunciation was very good, but you may want to work on the pitch coming up higher and a little bit lower. Madam Chairmaster.
Thank you, Steve. We will now observe 1 minute of silence while the judges cast their ballots. Madam Timer, please indicate when 1 minute has passed. Let's have a round of applause for our contestants today. Great job. While we wait for the judges to complete their feedback for the contestants, I will ask our contestants a few questions. Each contestant will receive a certificate of appreciation for their participation via email. First, contestant number 1, Beth Stuckley. Thank you for being a contestant today. Please share with us the name of your club and which area your club belongs to.
Well, today I'm representing Advanced Toastmasters, which is the club hosting this event. And we have realigned our areas. I'm sorry, I'm not sure what area we are in this year.
We are in B4.
Okay, thank you.
How long have you been in Toastmasters?
Almost 19 years.
That's a long time. You must enjoy being in Toastmasters for some reason. So what compelled you to be a member of Toastmasters for so many years? I'm a relative newbie, only having been in Toastmasters for about 4 years.
Well, I wish I could remember who said it, but there's a quote that if you stay in Toastmasters, if you don't leave Toastmasters until you've gotten everything out of it that you can, you'll never leave Toastmasters. So I feel like I'm still getting something out of it.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that with us. And thank you for being a contestant today, Beth.
Thank you.
Liz, thank you for being a contestant today. What is the name of your club and which area does your club belong to?
Well, I'm in this club, Advanced Toastmasters in California, but I'm also belong to Keller Communicators in Texas. We're in District 25, and I have no idea what area we are, although we have some Texas people here who might know what area we're in, but I don't remember. But it's District 25.
Great. How long have you been a Toastmaster?
I've been a Toastmaster for 13 years.
What would you recommend to someone who wants to improve their evaluation skills?
Evaluate every week. Sign up for evaluation roles as often as you can. And even when you're not evaluating, in your mind, evaluate the speech so that you can keep improving your evaluation skills.
Excellent suggestion. I know I'm still working on my evaluation skills. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
We appreciate you being a contestant today.
Thank you.
Steve Medina.
Madam,
What is the name of your club and what area does your club belong to?
today I'm representing the Simi Valley Business Toastmasters Club.
Great. And how long have you been a Toastmaster?
Wow, 10 years this February, and it has gone by very quick.
Is it helpful to be a member of more than one club in Toastmasters when it comes to evaluation skills?
Oh, absolutely. And in fact, you become more experienced. You're asked to do more evaluations from specific people in the club because they like the kind of feedback that a senior individual may, senior, I should use that word loosely, that individuals who've been a Toastmaster for some time can utilize the feedback.
Great. Thank you. Yes, I do find it beneficial also to be a member of more than one club when it comes to developing my evaluation skills and speaking skills, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for being a contestant with us today.
And you're welcome.
All right. We now have the judges returning from the breakout room. It's time to hear from our judging panel. Please welcome back our chief judge and judging panel facilitator, Wayne Sabera, DTM.
Thank you, Gail. What a great contest. I had a lot of fun with that one. It's always fun to watch Toastmaster contests. You learn something each time. Are the judges back from the breakout room? Alan, Bill,
Judges,
Brenda?
Bill Parker is not back. Tan, can you please go to join the breakout? Oh, nope, he just came back. You're back.
Very well. Let me start with Alan now that Bill's back. Let's put Alan on the screen. Alan, could you say something so you'll be on the screen?
Yep. Hey, good day,
And there's
everyone.
Brenda, and Alan's on the screen too. Waiting on this, Tim. This is your judging panel, folks. How do you like it? What good looking people they are. Imagine the experience. Just those 4 people, they must have at least 200 years of Toastmaster experience among them. I think they're going
So
to.
did you have 160, Wayne?
I did. That's
Yeah.
Because I think the 3 of us only have about 40.
That's how we got so far. I was talking with Brenda yesterday and she was talking about it's great to get some young people into the clubs. And I said, Brenda, everyone's a young people these days. So at any rate, we're having fun with this evaluation contest. To begin, I would like to introduce our judge who is from Sydney, Australia, representing District 90. And Alan, if you would just tell us a little bit about yourself and take 2 minutes with general comments about evaluation and how you would approach it. Please welcome Alan Reeves Bevan.
Thank you very much, Wayne, and good day, everybody. So I've been a Toastmaster for 31 years, and I think evaluation has been the one skill that I have really enjoyed learning the most. It's probably the skill that I've taken into the world more than anything else. I'm in a management role, and for a long time I've dealt with staff and clients in difficult situations, but also in motivational situations. And honestly, through competing in evaluation contests, I've learned and honed my skill more so than anything else. It's wonderful to be able to present, but to be able to talk to somebody and give them constructive feedback to make them a better person in their role as a speaker or as a staff or actually in your family is absolutely a superpower. And I love evaluation contests. I've won the district contest, District 90. And it's the one thing that I strive to always improve in myself. So thank you for the opportunity to take part today.
Thank you, Alan. Good introduction. It's nice to have you here with us today. I know you traveled a long distance to be here and we do appreciate it. I'd like to welcome also Bill Parker. Bill Parker is part of the original District 33. He's the Las Vegas contingent, which now, after the split, became District 115. But Bill, you've been in Toastmasters a good while. Give us a little bit of an introduction and a little background on evaluation from your perspective.
Absolutely. My name is Bill Parker. I have been a Toastmaster for about 19 years now. I was a 2010 District 33 evaluation winner. And since then, I've conducted a lot of evaluation clinics in multiple districts around the country and coached 5 people to be district winners. Today, Sherry and I are coming back, and I guess they say you can't go back home, and we just proved them wrong today. And in terms of what I have to say about evaluation, I'll try to be concise, but I am a distinguished Toastmaster. So here we go. Evaluation is an art that draws from science. It's a speaking opportunity for one and an educational opportunity for all. If you do this thing right, then the purpose of the evaluation is threefold. You serve the speaker, you educate the audience, and you improve the evaluator's listening, speaking, and analysis skills. And the speaker should feel good about what they did, have concrete suggestions for improvement, and be excited about their next speaking opportunity. If you want to be a better evaluator, become a stronger speaker. If you want to be a stronger speaker, become a stronger evaluator. Thank you. I'm done.
Outstanding, Bill, outstanding. You've just given us 100 words in 2 minutes that were just magnificent. Those are good bottom line takeaways, folks. I hope you wrote them down. I also am very honored and pleased to introduce our home queen. She is a member of the Advanced Toastmasters, a past president of our club. She's also a past district governor for District 33. Please welcome to the judges panel, Brenda O'Brien. Brenda, give us a little summary.
Thank you, Wayne. Well, I've been Toastmaster since the age of time. But what do you expect when you're as old as dirt? As far as evaluations, to me, evaluations are very personal. And I don't always come across that way myself. I don't think anybody does all the time. But I think evaluation should be focusing a lot on, I guess you'd say, your personal feeling of it, because it's the passion that you show that really gets the message across. If you're positive and you sound like you're not interested, it's not going to help as much as if you show the passion. If you give ideas of being even better, if you're not interested, it's not going to be received as well. So the one aspect in an evaluation that I would tack on to everything that's really important about the meat of an evaluation is to add that passion. And that's the one item that is often forgotten in an evaluation.
Very good. Yes, indeed. That is a very important part of the speech that we're giving, is the passion, the feelings that go with it. Now it's time for the judges to make a few remarks and observations about the contest today. We don't want to necessarily do comparative speeches of the contestants. What we're doing is extracting learning material. The audience is listening. We have 57 people in attendance here. They are looking to this judging panel to interpret what we heard, what we saw, and to give some training and coaching as a result of that. Let's begin with the analytical quality. What does it mean to analyze a speech? If I'm listening to a 5 to 7 minute speech, and then I'm listening to an evaluation that's 2 to 3 minutes about it, how do I analyze? How do I determine whether it's effective, if it's clear and logical? What are the things that are important to keep in mind to analytically evaluate the evaluator? Who would like to go first? Alan, would you like to begin?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very happy to start off, Wayne. Thank you. So for me, as an evaluator, if I'm listening to a speech and I'm analyzing it, really there's a couple of things that I'm asking myself. I'm asking myself, what was the purpose of the speech? Why was the speaker in front of me today? And did they achieve that purpose? And if they did, how did they do that? We're taught very early on that really there are 4 purposes of a speech in Toastmasters, or really in any speech scenario. And that is either to entertain, or to inform, or to persuade, to make me do something, take an action, or to simply motivate me and feel good about myself at the end of it. And my very first question when analyzing a speech is, what was the purpose? Could I identify the purpose of the speech? Was it clear? And if it was clear, how did the speaker achieve that purpose? What techniques did they use? Did they use storytelling? Did they use humor? Did they use facts and figures? Did they use emotive language? How successful were they in achieving their purpose? And everything that I do in the evaluation hangs off that framework, tying it back to the original purpose of the speech as I found it. Interestingly enough, today, none of the evaluators I felt spoke to the purpose of the speech directly. They didn't have that cornerstone to hang their evaluations off, which which did create some, I think, challenges with the content of the evaluations. Once you've identified the purpose and the techniques, you can then start to talk about the specific use of the techniques and how well they did and how they could improve in achieving their purpose. That for me is the analysis part. And then finally, how did it make me feel? As an audience member, and don't forget, people here today, as an audience member, sorry, as a judge, I'm still an audience member. I'm still somebody who's being affected by that speech. I'm not just sitting back and taking down notes and scoring, but I'm wanting to be affected by that speech as well. And that to me is quite an important part of it too.
Absolutely. Excellent points. I have a few follow-up, but first let's give Bill an opportunity to wax in and tell us a little about your interpretation of quality analytical analysis. How do you approach that, Bill?
Well, first of all, the material is the material we've been studying all throughout Toastmasters. I mean, the subject matter that we're looking at is just found in pathways. It's found in TLIs, different workshops, going outside, hearing people like Darren LaCroix, et cetera. That's where you have your material balance, because evaluation is an art that's drawn from science. So you get as much science together as you can, then that gives you the tools to analyze. Mark Twain said that an impromptu speech takes about 2 weeks to put together. And I think he's right. So I have my format already. I have a template in my head that I use so that I can list those areas, because we're trying to help them give this speech, raise it to a higher level. So I will lay out those categories, and then as they come up, I'm putting them back and forth, because a contest speech is different than a standard speech, because an evaluation is all about the speaker, but a contest evaluation speech is a little bit about the evaluator.
Yeah.
But your material is pretty easy. You could just pick and choose, organize, and then go from there, and try to find something that's unusual, something that everybody else is not going to say. Because how do you stand out in a crowd? Got to be a little bit unique. And regular speech, you've got to connect with the audience.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bill. Brenda, do you have any additional comments? What were your perspectives on analytics? How do you analyze an evaluation speech?
I generally try to go and get the end result with what Alan and Bill was saying. But to me, analytical is the effectiveness, just as it says in the definition, the effectiveness of it clear and logical. Did they identify the strengths and weaknesses? But the effectiveness to me is, did they lead me on that clear yellow brick road? Did I want for something that they're missing, or did one transition not follow into the other, or did they ramble going back and forth like they're not really sure what they're talking about? And I need that clear effectiveness in analyzing what they found in that speech. It has nothing to do whether I agree or disagree with what they said about the speech, since all evaluations are personal perspective.
Very true point. Yes. Let's talk a little more about analytics. Alan, when you were talking about different styles of analyzing, if you have 3 evaluators who are using different styles of their evaluation speech, do you have a preference, or do you tend to bias someone that may be humorous or someone that may be very methodical and analytical and logical? Or how do you allocate the points? The Toastmasters tells us 40%, so I have 40 points to allocate there. Do you have a way of metering between the different style, which is the more effective, which is the most effective? How would you approach that, Alan?
That's a good question, Wayne. And I actually address that more in the technique area of the judging ballot. So the analysis for me is how the evaluator has addressed whether the speaker has achieved their purpose, and and again, the techniques that they use to achieve their purpose. When I look at the techniques that the evaluator uses, that's when I start to give points for performance and entertainment. And I'm a sucker for humor and for performance. I'm always looking for, has the evaluator maybe taken one of the themes of the speaker and used that theme throughout their evaluation? If they're evaluating a speaker who is talking about surfing or swimming in the ocean or something, have they used the words of waves of emotion and flooded within, so using elements of their speech to deliver their evaluation, which shows to me that they've thought cleverly about their presentation. It doesn't have to be humorous, but it absolutely has to be entertaining in my mind. You said it in your workshop, this is still a presentation. You got 3 minutes to stand up and talk to people. You don't want to be reading off facts and they did this, they did that, they did this, that. You put your audience to sleep at that point. And Bill said it earlier on, where you've got to differentiate yourself from your other evaluators. And it's in the technique part where that becomes a differentiator. So I will absolutely score higher if it is an entertaining evaluation, but not in the analytical parts. The analytical part for me is still very much, did they identify the purpose? Did they talk about how the speaker achieved that purpose, what techniques they used, and how well they used those techniques or not?
Excellent point. I liked the point you just mentioned here about cohesiveness, where the speaker is able to be cohesive with the person he's evaluating. And if there is some using the same terminology, same words, developing the idea that the speech originated and blending it into the evaluation shows a real cohesiveness and a connection and empathy that I think is very important. It's a skill, and it's difficult to do sometimes, but when it happens, it's a real sweet spot. You really,
Absolutely.
I've hit the jackpot with this one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bill, you were talking earlier about uniqueness and whether we're talking about analytics. Some of the things will be unique and some of the things will be common. How do you score those? How do you allocate the points, the 40 points? Or what is your approach to scoring the analytical perception and effectiveness?
I think in the analytics, it has to do with both quality and quantity. And we talked earlier about the rule of 3, and I'm going to apply that to a standard recommendation. If I were giving a recommendation for something, let's say, for instance, it was about blocking, I would start out, I suggest you might want to incorporate blocking into your speech. That's the comment, part 1 of the trifecta. Part 2, you explain what blocking is. Blocking is purposeful movement on stage so that you can separate the parts of the speech for clarity and also have a spot to refer back to later on in the speech. And then third part of that trifecta is the action part. You say, in your speech, you might have told the story about your father from over here and then transitioned and talked about your children and talked about the letter over here. And then later you could refer back to them. So you've got to have all 3 parts to have what I would call a truly effective recommendation. So expounding them, it's like I said, quality and quantity. You want to have more things that you liked about their speech than recommendations. And you want to go into maybe 1 or 2 with a little bit more gusto, because again, it's an educational opportunity, not just for the speaker, but for the entire audience as well.
Exactly. It's important not to just list a bunch of features. It's important to develop the idea. And I like your rule of 3 application. That rule of 3 works in most places, doesn't it? It's a very powerful technique. And if you use that rule of 3, for example, with blocking, notice that the featured speaker did use blocking effectively in her speech with her daughter and herself. The evaluators, only one evaluator commented on that. So that would be something else that would be part of the presentation. And would one evaluator gain a point for having noticed that, or would that, how would you approach that?
I'm giving them a little bit extra, I think. And then also, nobody really talked about the Zoom format. I think sometimes people don't want to talk about it at all. Some did mention that, the gestures were not like quite high enough. thing that I did not hear anyone talk about that I was waiting for was the fact that a virtual background sometimes makes your things disappear. Or if you move too quickly like this, see, and again, this would be a thing you talk about it, explain what it is. I'm demonstrating right now what happens. And that would be another type of recommendation that I didn't hear, but it would have been a unique one as compared to some of the others. And we want to help them present better.
It's a good idea and something we observe every time, isn't it? So to have acknowledged that and emphasized it would be good. Brenda, how about you? Do you have some additional analytical remarks?
Much between this round and the round before, I think most of it's been covered.
Then let's move into recommendations. Brenda, how do you encourage an evaluator to get to effective recommendations, particularly when the speaker has a challenge? What's your approach for evaluating how the recommendations were presented by the evaluator?
Recommendations need to be specific, not just say, you shouldn't do this. It has to give an example, a clear example of a way they can perhaps do it so that they can be even better. It has to be positive. It has to be encouraging. A lot of what you've already covered in the training, it needs to be personal though. What I noticed was there was a lot of positive in the evaluations, yet some of the recommendations came out and said, well, you should do. And if you get that little edge in the recommendation, it tends to, especially on someone insecure, to back them off a little bit. And I did notice a little bit of that, even though all three had been positive in comments. A couple of the recommendations in them were not really encouraging the way they were worded. So my feeling would be more stick with the personal, I feel, and perhaps you could, or one way might be, so it doesn't set them off and in their mind arguing with you about it.
Wayne, just some tagging on to what Brenda had to say. I think that the way that you aim your recommendations is very important. See, like I talked about the trifecta, the first thing, the comment aimed directly at the speaker. You know, I would like to see you incorporate blocking. But then you don't sit there, you need to do this, you don't do that. Then you pull away, and now you're talking to educating the entire audience and just talking about the subject in general, not focusing it directly on that speaker, because nobody really wants to be under the spotlight like that.
Exactly.
But in the evaluation sheet, it does say to give specific suggestions, specific recommendations on the judging ballot.
Here we want to be careful not to be judgmental, but rather we want to be supportive and enabling. The idea is to give a recommendation that is enabling. So the speaker will be hearing, this is something that I can go and do. It's something I'm encouraged to do, rather than being slapped on the hand that you did the wrong thing. So the style in which that recommendation is presented is quite important. Ellen, please add.
Yeah, absolutely. And it comes down to how the words you use, right? And as Brenda said, don't say you should do this, you should do that, but rather, your speech would have been far more entertaining or far more informative, again, tying it back to the purpose. If you had done this, I give a specific recommendation that ties back to the purpose of the speech, and that recommendation will improve and help you achieve that purpose better. And then, as Bill said, you give the why and the how, right? So how specifically could the speaker have included more hand gestures, for instance, so you give an actual practical example of how she could have done that, and then why is that important? It's wonderful to give recommendations, but if the speaker is sitting there thinking, well, I don't agree with that, why should I have done that, then they're not going to take that learning on board. So it's very important to give specific positive feedback that improves the speech, show them how to do it and give them an example, but then also tell them why, why it's important for them to have done that.
Which is exactly why the idea of developing the idea is so important, rather
Absolutely.
than simply stating a fact and moving on.
Correct. Yeah.
I remember one contest, evaluation contest. It was kind of humorous, but one of the contestants in a speech said, well, I have 10 recommendations for improvement. And then he began listing the 10 recommendations. And by the time he got to the 6th recommendation, he forgot what was 7 and he got all flustered.
Yeah.
The idea is having 2 or maybe 3 focus points gives the speaker something to work with. And the idea of not only stating the fact, but then giving the teaching, the learning, the explanation, that is where the real value of the evaluation comes in. That's where people are making notes in their journals. That's where people are learning from the audience. Excellent points. We are 70% through the scoring. Is there anything else left on analytical or recommendations? If so, pick it up in our part number 3, which is technique. It's 15 points in technique for the manner of the comments, the sensitivity to feelings of the speaker, and the implication or encouragement for future speaking. These are the things in the technique scoring. How would you approach scoring 15 points more or less for someone in technique? What do you look for? Who would like to start?
I'm happy to dive in, and again, this is where I find the differentiation between evaluators, right? It's in their technique. Assuming that they've analyzed and assuming that they've given recommendations, and assuming they've done a summary, which we'll talk about next. It's a technique that really sets people apart. Has the evaluator stood up and made the speaker feel that they really, really kind of spoke to them personally? Have they left the speaker at the end of the evaluation feeling positive and upbeat? Have they presented to the audience, because it is still just a speech? Have they presented to the audience and entertained the audience, delivered the evaluation in a way that is accessible to everybody, not just to the speaker? And again, have they had the skill to be able to incorporate themes and words from the speaker's speech into their evaluation, instead of just writing down words and delivering it? This, to me, the technique bit is where you make competition winners, assuming everything else is there as well, right?
We're nearing the limit of our time zone and we have a hard stop in about 5 minutes, but let's wrap up anything else that's important that we may have thought of during this conversation. And let's do that as part of our part 4, which is the last 15 points go to the summation. How do you conclude? How do you tie up the story, the evaluation? How do we end it with summarizing my good points, my encouragement, my esteem points, my recommendations or observations or opportunities? How do you wrap it up? And is it important to tell the judges in conclusion, so they'll be sure to give you those 15 points, or do you just go ahead and conclude? Let's start with Bill. Conclude us, Bill.
Okay, and I think you or I are brothers from another mother on our opinion on some of these things with evaluation. But yeah, today we did not have thorough, complete evaluations. We some of the speaker evaluators spent a lot of time on the top part, and we didn't really get a lot in the summation end of things. Now that's 15 points. If you don't get those 15 points, it's pretty hard to win. You want to make it obvious, and I have no problem with all going in summation. And when you do, it doesn't have to be a long drawn out thing. There's no new material. It's really pretty simple. Let me give you something really transparent. If you take your natural skills of ABC and incorporate my recommendations of X, Y, and Z, I can definitely see you being 1, 2, 3. I think it's really just that simple. I mean, when I put numbers and letters in, it's obvious, but when you say it and are authentic and sincere, it really does mean something. Wanted to add a quick thing on technique. And Alan was talking about some of those techniques that separate the speakers out, the finishing touches. You want to use wordplay. There's a main part, but I would add an opening and a closing. And those are things where you want to use upper level techniques. Like say today, so you presented us with your speech entitled "The World is My Oyster," but today you gave us a pearl of a speech, something like that.
Yep.
And by the way, do not start with "Good evening, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow." That's every speech in the world ends up. Start out with something that distinguishes you. It's got to be like, "Wow, Brenda, that was the best speech you gave today. I absolutely loved it." Okay, and then Mr. Toastmaster, fellow to blah, blah, blah. But, have some sort of an opening. And that pearl comment could have saved it for the end. If you do this, blah, 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 I can definitely see your next speech being a pearl of great price.
Excellent point.
And you actually see people react physically.
Oh, yeah. They absolutely will gasp.
Yeah.
A little bit from my own experience, the year that I won, there was the speaker's last name was Carpenter. And she talked about her journey in Toastmasters. So at the end, I said, well, you've done an ad, blah, blah, blah. And remember, just like a couple of other carpenters I know, you've only just begun. And I heard an audible gasp in the room.
Yes, indeed.
You're going, oh!
I've got one final thing to add to that in terms of technique and summary is to learn your intro sentence and to learn your summary and deliver it without looking at your notes. Again, to make that initial contact immediately with your audience and your speaker, and to have that final point, that succinct point, and absolutely use the words in summary or in conclusion. It wasn't clear today for a number of the evaluators whether they were concluding. One did, but it's 15 points. You want to make the judges know absolutely that you're delivering a summation. So don't be scared of doing that. It's very crucial. But learn the intro, learn the summary. The rest you can talk with notes if you need to.
That is good advice for all speeches. I think that's an excellent point. Brenda.
Just a presentation, right? So yeah.
Yes, thank you, Alan. Brenda, closing summation.
In addition to what Bill said, besides the fellow Toastmasters, ladies and gentlemen, whatever they have as an introduction to acknowledging the audience, don't say thank you as your opening. Just as a speaker shouldn't thank the audience, an evaluator shouldn't start out by a thank you because it gives no information and no lead in. So wow it,
Yes.
just like Bill said.
Excellent.
And summarize it. It's the same thing as in a speech. Leave a takeaway. And that's the reason why the summation is there.
Speaking of takeaway, it's time to take it away now. I sincerely appreciate our three judges on the panel working with us, offering their sage advice. And I'm returning control now to Gail. If there were any questions in the chat or any items of that sort that we should follow up with. Otherwise, Gail, it's up to you from this point. Meanwhile, the judges should direct chat me your first, second, and third place of the three contestants if you have not done so. Gail, please proceed.
Thank you, Wayne. Wow, that was an amazing judging panel. I learned so much. Thank you, Alan, Bill, and Brenda, and Wayne, for all of those wonderful and insightful comments about evaluations. I don't think I can remember all of them, but I know this is being recorded and I can come back and watch it again to learn all of these amazing tips and techniques about how to be a better evaluator. Are there any quick questions that anyone has for Wayne or any of the evaluators before we proceed with the closing of this meeting? Just give a moment for anyone. All right, hopefully you can't hear my dogs in the background. This workshop has been recorded and will be available for review through the District 33 website. Oops, I see that two participants did raise their hands. Oh, Georgia has a question. Georgia.
Yes, thank you, Gail. So Wayne, thank you very much. A lot of insights today. Wonderful. One of the things that I noted here is that you have to give value to the judges, you said. I'm not sure how I could do that. It's worse. I'm addressing myself as an evaluator to the judges, or any other tips on that. Thank you.
One of the things that I would mention about judging is that as you advance from the club to the area to the division to the district, the quality and the authenticity of the judges improves. When you're at the club level, there's frequently judging based on, I like that speech better than that speech, or yes, they really zinked in with exactly what I was thinking. So as you begin to move up the levels, you'll find the judging gets more impactful and more accurate. That same thing is true for all contests. It's especially true for the international contest, but in the evaluation contest, it's also true. Georgia, was there, I may not have answered your question if you had a slight different slant. Would you reiterate what you were looking for if I didn't get it?
Yes, so the question is, I understand, it is what is expected as the level is going higher, but as an evaluator, how do I need to differentiate, if this is the key here, my phrasing to give value to the judges? Because the way I understood what you are saying is we have to show appreciation of their presence when we are evaluating. Maybe I misunderstood, but this is what I got out of this point.
Okay, that's a good question. I understand what you're saying now. As a speaker, so I talked about in my presentation, you need to give value to the speaker, value to the audience, and value to the judge, as well as value to yourself. How do you give value to the judge? You could make it easy for the judge to give you good points. You just heard today some important information about how to present your speech. For example, it's better not to just rattle off items 1, 2, and 3. It would be better to give a recommendation 1, develop the idea, explain it, and then teach it to the audience. That gives the judge then argument for good analytical skills and good recommendation. If you are also very careful at the conclusion to say, in conclusion, there is no doubt at all that you've begun step 4. If the other thing that I would mention is, I actually went 5 seconds over at the district contest a few years ago and lost because of that. And what happened was I had completed my speech, but I stood there on the stage without a clear stop. The timer didn't know I was finished. I was sitting there and I had completed my evaluation. I'm done. But the timer's still looking at me and I'm still standing there. So then I said, Toastmaster. Then they clicked, stop the clock, and that was 5 seconds beyond. If instead of standing there at the completion of my speech, I had said Toastmaster or complete or anything, back to you, or even a gesture, that would be sufficient to tell the judges and the timer a clear signal. It's important to give them a clear signal of start and finish. Same thing is true for the judges. If you know they're looking at 40% analytical, 30% recommendations, it's good to have some clear recommendations. So that would be how I would support the value to the judges. Is that helpful, Georgia?
Absolutely. Thank you, Wayne. Absolutely.
Thank you for the question. Any other questions or remarks? With that, Gail, I think our time is up, and I would offer again that following the adjournment of the meeting, we will be having an open microphone if people want to stay and have conversation. And the last thing I would say is, Tamami, having heard all of this to do about your speech, do you have any remarks for us? What was your impression of the evaluations and the comments about the evaluators? You have a little closing remark for us, Tamami? You're still muted. There you go.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm very honored to be here today and be evaluated by great evaluators, and also to hear the tips about evaluation from judges. It was very nice to be here today. From evaluators, some comments were the exact comments or opinions that I had in my mind when I was giving my speech. For example, the content, the opening of 20 years old for coming of age day didn't really fit my content with the birthdays part. Also, what I was surprised about was the graphic in my background. That was unintentional with this soup. The evaluations were very productive. I also had those in my mind, so I would like to brush up my speech from your evaluations and would like to continue improving my speech along my journey. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tamami. Gail, take it away.
Thank you, Wayne. As president of Advanced Toastmasters, I would like to thank the judges for their help in demonstrating the training you received. They were awesome. A special thank you to Wayne Sabera for creating and leading the heart of our workshop today. Advanced Toastmasters is a specialty club focused on providing exemplary evaluations for prepared speeches and table topics, which are critical skills that you can transfer and apply to your professional and personal life. Giving constructive feedback is what we do best in this club. Everyone here is invited to join Advanced Toastmasters as a guest, or even better, a member. We meet the first and third Saturday at the same time. Contact us for the Zoom link information. And a special thank you to Tim Mullins for working his technical magic today. Thank you, District 33, and especially Tan Fam for all of your support and leadership. Thank you, fellow Toastmasters, for joining us today to learn how to be a brilliant evaluator. We'll remain online for a few minutes in the event anyone would like to talk about anything else or has any additional questions. This meeting is officially adjourned.
Would you like to know who was the